Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Yud Tes in Sota, as we learn for 4 Shleimer for Akiva ben Chai Rachel. Says the Mishnah at the beginning of the parak. Who took the mincha? We're going back and forth. First, we said that the husband, in the previous parak, we talked about the husband brings her, right? That was the first thing, maybe. And then we said that the not only brings her, but he has to bring the korban mincha. Maybe it's minchasa. In the beginning of the second parak, we began with this idea that he brought her mincha. The husband brought it because she's really the baalim over here, and the husband brings it on her behalf. And here we say also the husband, he brought the mincha. We talked mitzvahs, just like the beginning of the second parak back on Yudalid. He brought her mincha. Again, he took the mincha from the wicker palm branch cheap basket, and he put it in the klisharis. Where's the kohen? We'll see in a minute. The kohen doesn't have to do this yet. The kohen's job is only from kamitza. You remember, by a korban, by an animal, even a zar, a non-kohen, could do the shchita from Kabbalah and on. Kabbalah, halacha, and zrika has been by a kohen. When it comes to a mincha, where the kohen does it with his hand, takes the fistful, that's the first thing that he has to do. So here the baal, the husband, brings the mincha in this cheap wicker basket, and he puts it into a klisharis. That's already a sanctified, clean, the base of Mikdash. We're still not in the Azar yet, because she has no business in the Azar. She stands on the other side of Shar Niknar. V'nosas al Yadin puts it on her hand. Then he gives her, she's really the Baalim here. She's the owner who's supposed to bring this korban. He puts it, the husband puts the klisharis with the korban mincha, the flour, in her hand. Now she's holding it. V'nos al Yada. V'kohen meniach yado es yado mitached. He puts his hand underneath her hand, umanifa, and waves it. One of the things that's done with this korban mincha, as is done with other korbanos, like you see with shlamim and other korbanos mincha, is that it's waved. Wave means north, south, east, west, up and down, like we do with the lulav. Same kind of a thing. But here, as we'll see, the kohen does it together with the woman. So the question arises: what is he touching her? Is he touching her? So it says, umanifa. And he is made. So this is a big discussion. How does he do that? You could say that she's holding one part of the kli and he holds another part. He puts his hand underneath and she's holding to a different part. However, the Yerushalmi goes resulting and says, well, first maybe they put a cloth in between, so he shouldn't be touching her. I'm assuming anyway she's not a nida at this point. Otherwise, he would delay it and do it afterwards, presumably. But how should he be touching her? So somebody use a cloth, but then a cloth would be a chatzitza. Is even her hand a chatzitza for him? Well, that's the way the Torah did it. Yerushalmi comes out that it's a special thing here, that for that few moments that it's done, there's no Yetzirah Shayach there, and actually he's actually touching her hands. That her hands are on the basket. He puts his hands underneath her hands so that he's touching her hands. He's touching this woman's hands, and there's no Yetzirah, so to speak, for that moment in time. It's like Xeris Akasa. Don't worry about the one svara of the Yerushalmi is, well, they bring an old man, but that's not a thing where he rejects that and says, no, it could be a young man too, but there's no Yetzirah at that point. Yeah, big audience. Yeah, you're right. So we had before that you don't strip her naked, or you don't strip her when you rip off her clothes. There are young kohanim there who can get a Yetzirah, so whatever. The point is that in this case, this kohen is doing it. There's no concern about that.
Aside from the Yetzirah issue, what's the issue?
The Yisr is it's improper. No, if she's not a nida, the Yisr is simply Yetzirah. The Yisr, this is good Yetzirah. It's improper. It's simply improper. It's what we call preaches. Kissing
a woman.
Yeah, it's preaches. Yeah, it's preaches. Where we bring it's not your wife. It's preaches, right? No, assuming there's no nida issue, right? It's preaches. Yeah, right. So the kohen puts his hands underneath, like we said. Even if he's touching her hands, according to most, that's simply the way it's done. That's how the Torah prescribes it. Not with a cloth in between, and not touching different areas of the rim. One's on the bottom of the basket, one's on the rim. No, he's touching her hand. That's how the Torah prescribes it. And he waves in the six directions, as we said. Hanif, now he waves. Vehigish, now he brings the kohen. Now takes the korban. She's not allowed into the azar. The kohen now does what I call approachment. He approaches the southwest corner of the mizbeach. That's what you do with a korban mincha. he comes to the southwest corner, so to speak, like he just goes there and he touches the mizbeach with the korban mincha in the kli sharis. Comments, then he takes the handful there, big tear, and he burns it on the mizbeach. As we said before, we said the other day that a mincha that a kohen's own mincha is totally burnt. There's no commitment, so you burn the whole thing. Here, any other mincha, which is kodesh kodashim, is eaten by zichrei kohen, by male kohanim. And here too, it's the same thing. After he does the kmitza, the rest can be eaten by the kohanim however they want to. They can bring some relish or whatever and eat the korban mincha any way they want. Then the Mishnah says, she would drink the meimarim, and then he would bring the korban, and then he would burn it. So the Gemara is going to say, what do you mean? You just said you burnt it already. Hiktir and makrav is the same thing. And then it's eaten by the kohanim, and then she drank, and then you're makrav it. That's what it sounds like, but it's not really the case. As the Gemara is going to explain in a minute. We gave the order, and then so when's the hashkada? When does she drink? So he just says that according to the Tanakhama, we'll see she drinks before you do the korban. As we said back in Yadal and the Beis, that even though she drinks before the korban, the effect of the mayim is only after the korban is done. So it's a delayed reaction. We said according to the Tanakhama here. So here he's not giving you the order. He's just telling you where's the mashka done. The mashka is done before the hakrav, even though we've already described heinef hikish kametz v'hiktir v'shanach l'kohanim. He's just telling you that the drinking is done before this whole hakrav took place as minchasa. That's the Tanakhama. Rav Shimon says, the way it sounds, it seems more logical to us. Rav Shimon Omer, makros minchasa, you bring for the mincha v'yachkach hayamashka, and then you drink afterwards, so that as soon as she drinks, basically the water should have its effect. Then afterwards he brings her. After you did all that, then he gives her the drink. Now Rav Shimon holds, even though if you did it reverse, if you gave a drink and then makbid, also it's kosher. That's how he holds. But we'll see the others don't agree with it. But we have basic machlokas. Does she drink before the mincha or after the mincha? Rav Shimon says after the mincha. As we'll see, Rabbi Kiva also holds that way. And the Tanakhama says, no, she drinks before you brought the korban mincha. But the order of the mincha is as we described in the first part of the Mishnah. Amalei Rabbi Elazar of Yoshia did Dorei. There were two Rav Yoshias. There was a Rav Yoshia who was a Tana, right? Who was always the bar plukta of Rav Yonasan, Rav Yoshia. This is not the same one. This is a later Amora. That's why he says Rabbi Elazar told the Rav Yoshia of his generation. And it's not that they were so far removed. One was a Tana, one was a Mora, but he just, as Rashi says, is because it's not the normal way to speak. Rabbi Elazar would not tell Rabbi Yoshia, the elder one, the Tana, don't sit down on your knees. Please don't. I don't want you to sit down until you explain this. It's not a proper way to speak to an elder. So therefore, this is not Rabbi Yoshia the elder, but it's Rabbi Yoshia of Rabbi Elazar's generation. How do you know that mincha sota requires this waving that we talked about, where the kohen puts his hands under her hands and he waves it in the 6 directions? What do you even know? What kind of a kasha is that? Pasuk says v'heinef kohen, right? The pasuk says v'heinef, right? V'heinef ksiv, it says v'heinef. What's the question? No, the question is ba'bailam minolan, right? The question is, how do you know that you wave it together with her? That's what we're talking about. The pasuk says, so we know he does it too. But what kind of a question is that? The question is Baba Bailam. How do we know that with her, and she's the Hainif Ksiv Ba, probably is the right way to read it. The Hainif Ksiv Ba, it says Hainif over there. No, the question that's comma. I read it wrong before. The Hainif Ksiv Ba, it says Hainif there. So of course that's how you know you do tnu for the waving. The answer is Babalama. How do we know that it's done with the owner? In this case, that's her. The answer is Asi Yad Mishlam. Zerushav from Shlomo. Sivach by Shlomo, there is waving, as there it talks about waving of the Chaz V'Shok and the Emurim, that he waves it over there. It says over there, Sivach, here it says, he'll take it from the hand of the woman, the mincha in the klishars. And there it says by Shlomo, Yadov Kiviyena, his hands will bring it. Makan Kohen, just like here's Lachach Kohen Miyad Isha. Here it's done with a Kohen. The Yad, of course, is going on the Isha, and Yadav over there is also going on the Baal. But just like over here, we're talking about doing it with a Kohen, also Kohen. There by Shlomim also, even though it doesn't say Kohen, it means the Kohen there too. Malahol and Babalim. And just like over there is with the Baal and Yodov to the end, that's the owner. Afkan Bailam. So here it's also so we have Xavier Shava. Here it's the Kohen, there it's the Baalim. But the Xavier Shava says that what applies by one applies by the other. So over there's also a Kohen by Shlomim, and over here by the Sota, it's also the Baalim. Okay, so how do you do it? In both cases, the Kohen puts his hands underneath the hands of the owner of the carbon, and he does the Tnufa. The Mishnah said, Heinif, what's the order? Heinif, Behegish, Kamatz, and Hayamashka, Bachkach, Makavas, Mechasa. So I mentioned this kasha before. You already brought it. You already brought the order. You said that the Hagish Kamatz, Heinif, Behegish, Kamatz, Behiktir, and he burned it. And then you said, so Yamashka, Bachkach, you already mocked it already. What do you mean? He was mashka, and then he gave her a drink, and afterwards you brought it. You already mentioned that you brought it. Seder menachos, the seder of the order is keitzad. Hey, if you do the waving, the higish, and do the approachment, kamatz, you take a handful, the hiktir, and you burn it. Uvashka gufa. What about the drinking? When is that? Is that before this whole process with the mincha or after? So we'll see based on the psukim, the way they interpret the psukim. The Rabbanan say you first give her a drink and then you do the mincha. Rab Shimon Savar Makavas Machasi, you first bring from mincha b'yachkach mashka shenemar ba'achar yashka. Now it's important if you don't have a chumash in front of you, we're going to get into the psukim in a minute because there's 3 times that it talks about hashka. It says v'hishka, then it says v'achar yashka after the korban mincha, and then it says again v'hishka. So there's 3 times that it talks about giving her to drink. So Rav Shimon, who again seems to me the most Sephardic way, says after she has brought the carbon, says v'kamatz hamincha, v'hiktir mizbecha. After the whole thing, the heinif, and he's makrib, v'kamatz, and the hiktir, v'achar yashka. So the simple way you read the psukim pasuk chafei and chavav and parakei is that he does all this process with the mincha, and then afterwards v'achar yashka samayim. That's what Rav Shimon is really saying. That's what Rav Shimon says. Now let's understand the psukim. That's really what we're dealing with now. Tana Rabbanan and Amid Beis. Yeah.
She fixed the water first, and then the korban. She won't be in any condition to not to. She should be sick.
No, it's delayed. That's what I mentioned. It's delayed. The reaction is delayed. Reaction's delayed. Back on Yudalad Amid Beis, when we mentioned that Shita, Rashi says Rashi's referring to our Gemara. Rashi on take a look at the top Rashi on Yud Dalet Amid Beis, the second line. Umiyu, the second line in Rashi on the top of Yud Dalet Amid Beis. Umiyu, kol zman shelo karva minchasa. Even as long as she hasn't brought the mincha, ain in the dekes. It doesn't check her. It doesn't check her to see if she's guilty. Tachsiv maskera savom. The mincha is a remembrance of her sin. The afapi shishasa, even though she drank. Now we tie her out the Toda. That's what he's talking about. What's the reason why we tie her out? Because we're trying to have Rahmanas on her, not because we're trying to save the Megillah, because we're saying that the Megillah, she drinks first, and then you're makir of the mincha, right? So she's drank first already. The Megillah's already been blotted out. There's a bit all been raised. The whole idea is we try to convince her. Don't drink. You admit it already, so we don't have to take the Megillah with Hashem's name on it and erase it. We don't want to erase God's name. But if she drinks before the korban mincha, right before you bring the mincha, you already erase it. You only drink once you erase the cloth in the water. Once you've made the water ready. So she drank already. So why are we trying to tie her out with the mincha? Why are we trying to tie her out in the tie that she should admit it? We wanted to admit it. To save her, because if she admits it now, that's the thing. She drinks now, according to if you hold that she drinks before the mincha. If she drinks now and then admits it, it won't kill her. That's the point. Instead, they won't kill her. We're trying to save her. Right. Rachmanas on it. Admit it, and then if all you have to do is admit it, and it won't work, and the water won't work on you. Tana Rabbanan. Behishka, matam lomer. What is the idea of Hishka? Now, which case is this going on? If you look again, you don't have the Chumash in front of you, but the idea here is that it says once V'hishka, Esa'isha, he'll give her a drink, and this is what's going to happen. And then it talks about the mincha, and then it says Ba'achar Yashke, and then it says V'hishka again, a few words later, Ba'achar Yashke Se'isha Mayim, V'hishka Samayim. What's going on over here? The question over here is really, what's the first one? Talk about V'hishka, Matam Alomba. What do you mean the first Hishka? What are you drinking before the korban mincha? Balok Far Nemer, as we'll see, this is sheet of Rabbi Akiva, who holds like Rav Shimon. They both hold that Makr Minchasa ve'achkach mashka. So what's the first vihishka for? If you haven't run the mincha, but what's the first vihishka for? That's what Rashi explained the song Rashi. Balok Far Nemer vihishka. The artist says later on vihishka. So you know what? Shem Nimcha Megillah. If they erase the Megillah, and as we'll see according to this shita, even if you erase the Megillah at the wrong time, you shouldn't erase the Megillah until you're about to give it a drink. And if you haven't brought the mincha yet, you still have plenty of time. First bring the mincha, then prepare the water, then you'll erase the name. But let's say they did it wrong, and they did it first mincha Megillah. Once the Megillah's been erased, even before they brought the carbon mincha, but Omer's it's just I don't want to drink. Ma'aronoso, you stir her up. Umashkenoso, you force her. That's how your ma'aronoso's lotion that you raise her up, and you force it down her throat. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva says, in other words, once you've already blotted out the water, once you've erased the Hashem's name, not blot Hashem's name in the water, once you prepare the water, it's too late to change your mind. That's what Rabbi Akiva is saying. Let's say she says, no, I don't want to drink. I don't want to drink now. So we'll see, this is Rabbi Akiva says that, no, you force her. And we'll see everybody agrees with that to some degree, different instances, but we'll see it's more or less agreed that if, until you blot it out, until you erase the Megillah, she could change her mind and doesn't drink. Of course, if she doesn't drink, she's admitting, Rabbi Akiva says, we'll see, Rabbi Akiva says you don't have to drink because she's admitted her guilt already. So she goes out without a ksub, etc. You just don't kill her. But here he says you force it down her throat anyway. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shimon doesn't argue with Rabbi Akiva. He's just explaining a different point. They both agreed that you're first makar of the mincha and then you're mashke. They argue about a different point later on. We'll talk about that. But here, Rabbi Akiva says, what's the first hishka? You haven't brought the carbon mincha yet. And how do you know that you drink only after the carbon mincha? Because it says va'achar yashka. So what's the first hishka? That if for whatever reason you blotted out Hashem's name already, you prepare the water, she can't change her mind. Reb Shimon va'achar yashka. What does that teach? It already says v'hishka, right? Ella la'achar kol ha'masim kula ma'murim lamala. Right? When it says v'hishka, or this nemer hishka is going to be a few seconds later, right? It says pasuk shlishi says v'lo kor nemer 3-4 words after v'achar yashka. It says v'hishka. So you know you drink it afterwards. You already know that that drinking is after the carbon mincha. Look at v'hishka. This is going on the second hishka. Ella achar kol ha'masim kula. After everything is done. That's when you drink hamur lavala. She only drinks after everything else, all the procedures that we talked about before. That's the point when she drinks. What does that teach me? Magid Gimel from teaches 3 things. You don't drink until 3 things have taken place. Gimel Dvar Makvanba. 3 things prevent her from drinking. In other words, those things are required to do before she can drink. Achal karva comments. Number 1, you have to be makar of the mincha, burning the handful. Achal nimcha megillah until you've erased it, she can't drink. Ba'achol to kabbalah shvua, she has to accept the shvua. Yesterday we talked about the shvua, that she has to accept the shvua. That number 1, she swears she hasn't sinned, and number 2, she swears that she accepts the shvua that if she did sin, that the water's going to kill her. So those 3 things have to take place before she drinks. Now he explains. Achol cover comments until the handful is burnt on his beach. Rav Shimon Tamei. Rav Shimon goes according to his reasoning in the Mishnah. He said in the Mishnah, you first bring the mincha, then you give her a drink. Like Rabbi Akiva holds with that too, that you first have to do the mincha, otherwise you can't drink. You don't drink until the Megillah has been erased. So, what are you going to drink? If you haven't prepared the water yet, so what is she supposed to drink anyway? Isn't that obvious? We're talking about this. Let's say you put the Megillah in the water, but you could still see the traces of the letters. Then it's not ready. It's not ready. The water's not ready until all the letters have been totally erased from the cloth. Not only that the ink has been erased with Hashem's name on it, but you can't even see the traces of them. That's what he means to say that until it's totally erased, the water is not ready. She can't drink yet. Right? Until she accepts a shvuah, she doesn't drink. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? Until she doesn't drink? Not only that, you don't even write it. She doesn't drink, but you could write the document. Rav Sota. Rav says that Megillah Sota a Megillah that was written before she accepted Shvuah, lo asr v'lo klum, because in the writings of there, we write on it that she admits, right? She says that she doesn't want to, she swears that we force her to swear that she hasn't sinned, and if she swins, she accepts the punishment and all that. And if you write it before she accepts a Shvuah, it's meaningless. And the Chanami says, right, Kadinas, but you didn't have to say that this third thing, that until she accepts the Shvuah, she doesn't drink. The truth is, until she accepts the Shvuah, you don't even write it. You don't even say, that's lav dafka. What's the machlokas in our Mishnah? As I said before, Reb Shimon and Rabbi Akiva don't argue about the order of the mincha and the hashka. They both say you first bring the mincha, then you drink. But the Chacham in the Mishnah said you drink first. You drink first. So what's the machlokas between Reb Shimon and the Chacham in our Mishnah? That's what it's going. Ma'ika mifagi. Plus a correct said. He said 3 psukim. First of Hishka Kama, the first Vehishka, which is in the pasuk before the mincha. The Achar Yashka, and then it says the Achar Yashka after the mincha, and so those are the words, the Achar Yashka. And then a few words later, it says Vehishka Basra, the second Hishka. Rabbanan Sabri, the Rabbanan hold the Hishka Kama Gufo. The first Hishka is to tell me, remember, according to their sheet, it says the first thing is done. You do the drinking, you prepare the water, the shvu, and all that, but you do the drinking before the mincha is brought. So that's why the Hishka is mentioned before the mincha. Very simple. Hishka Kama Gufo, Shemashka Bechkech Machmas B'chasa. The Achar Yashka, what does that teach me? Boy, Leila Shur Shemanikar. To tell me the Achar Yashka, she can only drink after the whole thing has been erased totally. There's no tracing. The Hishka Basu, what's the last Hishka? Shem Nimcha Kamegillah. Here, also the Chacham agree with what Rabbi Akiva said. If the Megillah has been erased, but Omeris and she doesn't drink, you force her to drink. That's the point, the Hishka, that she can't change her mind after the Megillah has been erased. That's no good. You can't change your mind. You force her to drink. Rab Shimon, who disagrees with Chacham, he says, "What you first bring the mincha, then you drink." Rab Shimon Savar, the Achar Yashka, he first explains the middle Yashka, which is V'achar Yashka. V'achar Yashka Legufo. Tell me, Shemakos Menchos V'achar Mashka. That's what he says. That same pasuk says, it says V'achar Yashka after you become a second mincha, so skrasa v'hikter mizbecha. V'achar Yashka si shemayim. That's to tell you, you first bring the mincha, and then you drink, then you do the drinking, then you do the hashka. So Rav Shimon said, "V'achar Yashka legufa shemakos menchos v'achar mashka." The Hishka Kam, what's the first one for? Listen to this. Shem Hishka. What's the first Hishka for? The Hishka is after the mincha. What's the first Hishka for? Hishka Kam Shem Hishka. If you did it first, if she gave her a drink, v'achar chikra is menchos, it's also kshera. It's like b'diavad. You're supposed to do mincha and then shera. That's what the Rabbanan don't like about Rav Shimon's drasha. How can you say that the beginning? You start off right away with the b'diavad. You could give a drasha later on. This is the way you do it. Okay, b'diavad, it's okay. But you're gonna start off with the b'diavad. The first Hishka is telling you that if you did it wrong, it's also kosher. That's what Shimon Darshans. The Rabbanan don't like that. Hishka Basra, what's the last Hishka? Again, so everybody at this point agrees, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon, the Chum all agree that what? That if once you erase Hashem's name, you force her to drink. But Rabbanan, I just mentioned that Rabbanan b'diavad lo pasach kor. The Rabbanan don't like Rabbi Shimon's drasha because you can't say that the first Hishka is already talking about a b'diavad. That you're saying that l'chadchila mincha v'achka hashka, but if you did hashka first, it's also kosher. The Rabbanan say that's not how you start off a drasha. Says the Gemara, "V'sav Rabbi Akiva mashkan sabakacha." Does Rabbi Akiva also agree with these ideas? Rabbi Shimon and Chacham, everybody agrees. The question is which pasuk you're using for. Remember, the Rabbanan said the first hashka is to tell you that that you're mashka, the simple pshat. The last hashka is to tell you nimcha megillah, that it's megillah. And Rabbi Shimon also said, what did Rabbi Shimon say? Rabbi Shimon said the last hashka also. Rabbi Shimon dashka bas shem nimcha megillah v'amrei shas marno samashka v'kachla. So both Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan agree that the last hishka is to tell you that if you did it, that once you erase the cloth, she has no choice; she has to drink. Rabbi Akiva said that, but Rabbi Akiva was saying is going on the first Hishka, right at the top of the page. V'hishka ma tamalomar, below kfarnemer v'hishka. It already says v'hishka at the end. So what's the first one for? Shemach Megillah. If you mach Megillah, v'amar shos amarno shavol kafir. Okay. Now the Gemara Sakasha. Rabbi Shimon, does Rabbi Akiva really hold that way? Does Rabbi Akiva mashka sabach kafir? Does Rabbi Akiva hold that concept? But Tanya Rabbi Yehuda says, listen, how did they force her to drink? When she says, I don't want to drink. If she doesn't want to drink at the beginning, that's great. Leave. Here's your get out of here. No ksuba, no nothing. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Nothing. You get nothing. You leave. That's it. That's what they want her. They want her to admit it. Obviously, the woman's under suspicion. So if it's unless she stands her garment, she says, no, I didn't do anything wrong, and she wants to drink, fine. So we encourage her not to drink. But once you've already blotted out Hashem's name, everybody agrees that she has to drink. Does Rabbi Kiva really admit that? How do they force her to drink? They would bring iron tongs, like tongs, and stick it in her mouth. Let's force her mouth open. Some dentists use it. They use no. I used to fall asleep on the chair, and they would put something in my mouth that held my mouth open. It wasn't metal tongs. What?
You can't drink.
I guess they force it down, and then she gargles it down. I don't know whatever happened, but they force her mouth open. Yeah, well, okay. Maybe they'd use something else today. When the Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt, we'll bring you to suggest the proper way to do it. Don't forget, the water doesn't work. Remember, we said the water doesn't work if she admits it, right? The water doesn't work immediately if she has chuyot. We'll talk more about that. The water also doesn't mean if everybody's talking about her. Usually these kind of things today, everybody's, if the women, remember the women spinning under the moon, spinning, sewing and doing their stuff. If everybody's talking about it, also doesn't work. There's many reasons why it wouldn't work. But here he says anyway, he says that they would bring this metal tongs. That's how they did it. That's what Rabbi Yehuda said. Amar B'kiva. I understand. Why would you force her to drink? Once she doesn't want to drink anymore, that's an admission that she's guilty. What's the point of drinking then? What's the point of drinking? To see if she's guilty or not? We already know that. The whole reason is to check if she's guilty or not. If she's I don't want to drink, it's obvious she doesn't want to drink. So that's our kasha. How can Rabbi Kiva say you force her? Rabbi Kiva says no. If she doesn't want to drink, that's an admission. That's all you need. It's Ella, but then he says ad shelo karva kometz, until the kometz is brought. Once you before you burnt the mincha. Remember, he holds that the mincha is brought before she's supposed to drink. If you haven't brought the mincha yet, she can change her mind. You should carve a kometz once you brought the kometz, or once you burnt the kometz, and you chasabo. So how does that solve the situation? Rabbi Akiva just said that if she doesn't want to drink, that's an admission. That's all you need. So Tameich Tishlachu Gufa. Well, Rabbi Akiva said no point in drinking if she admits it. If she doesn't want to drink it, that's an admission. There's no point in drinking anymore. We know that she's guilty. There's no point in killing her because we know she's guilty, and that's it. The marriage is over. So Tameich Tishlachu Gufa. So what's the point? But then why did he go on to say that if you brought the kometz ready, she can't change her mind and she has to drink? Tishlahi Gufa Mishakarva kometz and Yachalachsaba. But once you brought the kometz, she can't change her mind, meaning you force her to drink. What do you mean you can't force her to drink? Rabbi Akiva just said that if she doesn't want to drink, that's an admission of guilt. There's no point in drinking. This is low kasha. When she retracts and says, I don't want to drink, is it because of trembling? That means she's simply afraid now? Because if she really felt that she was not guilty and she didn't do anything wrong. And she thought, okay, fine, I'll go ahead with it. I know I didn't drink. But then when it comes down to drinking it, she says, well, maybe it doesn't always work right. Maybe the water will make a mistake and kill her. Maybe and kill her anyway. So she's afraid of that. Then we force her. But if she retracted because of she's healthy, like she's defiant, Barusa, she's strong, but she's just defiant, then there's no point in drinking because that's an admission of guilt. If it's because of defiance, doesn't drink. That's when Rabbi Akiva retorted to Rabbi Yehuda, if she says she doesn't want to drink, there's no point in giving her to drink because that's an admission of guilt. So we know she's guilty now. Now, what do you just want to kill her stam? You want to put her in the ground? No. So she admits she's guilty. The marriage is over. She doesn't drink then. Machas resisa. But if she's trembling, that means she wanted to drink, but now she's afraid. Then achlo karva kometz. Before the kometz was brought, the katilo the Megillah has not been erased yet. Why? Because the mincha, Rabbi Akiva holds like a shimon that you bring the mincha first and then you drink. So or inami, let's say they did it by mistake. They jumped the gun. The Kohanim jumped the gun and they erased the Megillah before the mincha. The shloka din of the Kohanim. The machki, they did it wrong. Matzmar, she could change her mind. That's not her fault that they erased the Megillah if they erased it wrong. That's what this Bryce is saying now, which is not what the previous. The top of the page, Rabbi Akiva didn't really say that. The way Rashi explained Rabbi Akiva, and as we will see in a minute, there Rabbi Akiva is saying no matter what, once you're machdi Megillah, she can't change her mind. So he says, "Ina mimcha Megillah shlokadin or could it not be the either he did it wrong, or again, if she's simply trembling, so if the comments hasn't brought yet and she doesn't want to drink, so that's it. You don't force her to drink. But once you brought the comments, or she could change her mind. So either if the comments has not been brought yet, or if they did it wrong, it's not her fault that they made a mistake and they erased the Megillah too early, she can change her mind. She can have her comments once the comments is brought, the bedina of the Kohanim. Now, once the comments is brought, the Kohanim are supposed to prepare the water, and they did it properly, and they've erased the water. The Machki lo matzah adaba. So that's what we're speaking about. She can't change her mind, and that's it. The last few words in Rashi on the last line of the page. The first price at the top of the Mishnah, at the top of this page, where we brought Rabbi Kiva Shita, the Tani Ma'arno saw, and Rabbi Kiva said, you do force her, even though Rabbi Kiva said later on to Rabbi Yehuda, you don't force her. You don't force her if she's defiant. Because when she was defiant, she says, listen, she's saying to herself, you know what? Let's go through the process. I can always withdraw at the end. I could always ask for a continuance. You know what I mean? Like, let's go through the court. Maybe they'll dismiss it. Maybe this will happen. I'll divorce. She says, you know what? Let's go through it. When it comes to drinking, I could always walk away anyway. I can always just say, I'm not going to drink. So she's defiant. That means that she's really guilty, but she's not afraid of the water. She's afraid because she knows it's going to kill her, because she's just defiant about it. But she's not walk away. I'm not going to die. And then she doesn't drink. But if she meant to drink, but now she's afraid, then we force her to drink. Like Marcus Kasher Rabbi Akiva, but which one is it? What's the I can't think of the word. What's the thing that's holding her back from drinking? I'm thinking, what's the word for holding her back? I think an English word. Huh? Restraining. What's restraining her? Yeah, what's restraining her? What's restraining her from, or restraining us from forcing her to drink? Is it the mincha? Is it the carbon mincha? Or is it the mechika? So Kasher Bikiba Hasam Amar Mechika Makabe. He said, listen, what's holding us back from forcing her, what's restraining us from forcing her is erasing the name. Once if the name hasn't been erased yet, Hashem's name isn't erased yet, she can withdraw. She can retract and say, I don't want to drink. Of course, she would leave the marriage, but she wouldn't have to drink. But once you blotted out the name, once you erase the name, then we force her. And here in this last brisa, we said that bringing the komets, once you brought the komets properly, then she can't change her mind, even before the Megillah has been erased. So which one is it? Rabbi Kiva, right? Because Rabbi Kiva said two things. Rabbi Kiva said before, in Nimcha Megillah, and she doesn't, you force her. Here, Rabbi Kiva is saying that once you brought the komets and she says, I don't want to drink anymore, you force her. So which one is it? Two sheetas in Rabbi Kiva. Boy, here's the question. Let's see, she says, I'm not going to drink. She's not afraid. She's strong. You see, she's not trembling. She says, I'm not going to drink. She probably feels she's guilty, right? Whatever, but she feels she's guilty. And she says, I'm not going to drink. Fine, that's it. She doesn't drink. There's not to drink. We just left the marriage. I changed my mind. I am going to drink now. So what do you say, Mao? Even the remaining shows, once she said, I'm not going to drink, and she wasn't trembling, Tmeani, so effectively she's admitting, she's effectively saying, I sinned. The Kiva the Achsik Nafsha, the Tumah, once she says, I've sinned, she admits it, she can't change her mind. Or do you say, oh, Dilma, no, Kiva the Mashosani, once she says, I would agree to great Goli Daita, the Mach must be a Susa Hudomer. The reason she said it was only because of fear, not because of anything else. And here you might say, Einar Machma, person like, here we're not talking about Edus, we were talking about what's evident to us. This is like an ansadi. There's something stronger than Edus. What's the famous case of something stronger than Edus and two Edom? What's stronger than two Edom? We see, what? No, not a self-admission. If I admit that I killed somebody, that's meaningless, right? What's this? When two Edom come along and say that Yankel is dead. Everybody knows who Yankel is. Tudat never even know who he is. Okay, fine, he's dead, right? Then he walks into the court. Walks in. So it's an ansadi that the two Edom are wrong. This is like an ansadi that she admitted she's afraid, or she said I'm not going to drink. She's admitted that she's a sota, that she sinned, and then she says, no, I am going to drink. Do we say too late? Do we say no? She can't change her mind, and that's it. She has to leave the marriage. There's no drinking, of course, because if she admitted that, obviously she doesn't drink according to Rabbi Kiva. But do you say she can't drink anymore, and she has to leave the marriage with no ksuba? Oh, Dilma Kiva the Amr Shosani, when she says, I agree. That shows that she was only afraid, but now she's And if, like we said before, if she was afraid to drink, she was trembling, we do force her to drink at a certain point in time. So maybe over here, when she admits now that she wants to, it shows that no, when she said before she doesn't want to drink, that's because she was trembling, she just didn't show fear. That question stands. Teku. Amar Avu Shmuel, the father Shmuel said, Sarach sheet mal tochamayim. The pasuk when it talks about preparing the water, it says, V'kasav ha'alo sa'ela ha'kohen b'sefer. He writes all these curses. We had 3 machlokas before, and Shabbos stuff about what parts of the parsha you have to write in there. But after you write the curses, you write in there, Umacha el me'amarim. And then he erases it, blots it out, obliterates it into the mei hamarim, meaning the water, the bitter waters. It's not the cloth that makes them bitter. It's not some magical thing. They were already bitter before. He blots them into the bitter water. What does that mean? You have to put something bitter into the water before. But there's a little, it comes with a little cup there of a little vial of something bitter, from maybe left over from Pesach. You got to put something bitter into the water. My time, mei hamarim. It says amacha el mei hamarim shemarim far. You put it into the bitter water. The water was bitter there even before he put the Megillah into the water. All right, pick them here from the Mishnah tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody. Call.